got to congrats the Cougs, man. The Cougs, and this was a game. It's a lot like the Rockets game last night, where the Cougs just jumped on their opponent early and then just didn't let him up. And it was a vintage Kelvin Sampson Cougs performance. Only 5 turnovers in the game for the Cougs. And one of those was 5 turnovers, and one of them was just an intentional shot clock violation just to get off the floor at the end of the game. They jumped on these guys early. They didn't let them up. The entire story, Seth, of the first half, I think it was Steve Lapis that was the color analyst on the game, the former Villanova coach, and I felt like he kept saying it over and over again, like throughout the first half and then throughout the beginning of the second half. If they can just get it down to 10 with 10 minutes to go, that's your goal if you're Tennessee. It was their goal to get it down to 10 at some point. It felt like all afternoon because the Cougs jumped on them so early. And they're on their way, man. They're on their way to the Final Four. They dominated Tennessee, 69-50, the final score. Kelvin Sampson gets to the Final Four, first time since 2021, 7th time in program history.
And we didn't get to talk about the Purdue game, right? That was Friday.
That was Fridays, yes. We haven't talked about that.
So the Purdue game was where it was at. That was intense.
Yes.
And I mean, Purdue, when that game inside that play, the kick out by Smith for the 3 for Purdue that ended up tying it up, and then at the very, very end of the game, Uzan has a brilliant inbound play that they'd worked on. It was the second option on that play. It was
like a second. It was
0.2 seconds or whatever. Well, the play by Purdue, too, to tie it was with 0.2 seconds left on the shot clock.
Yeah.
That was great. Now, that was in an environment where you're playing, even though you're the 1 seed, you're playing in Indiana against Purdue.
Yeah.
Basically, they had home court advantage.
Yep.
Tennessee had home court advantage just by virtue of so many more Tennessee Volunteer fans showing up. But it was kind of like a road-like environment, so going to San Antonio is going to be nice. Yeah,
they've won, I think, 17 in a row now, the Cougs. 4 losses all year, 3 of them in overtime. They are 4.5-point underdogs to Duke. I'm taking all of those points on Saturday. Duke is a really good basketball team. Man, this Cougs team is just different. They're just different than these other. You watch all these games in this tournament, you're like, all right, that is a different look. It's an older team for one thing, although there are a lot of old teams in this tournament once you get to this stage. Duke is kind of a rarity nowadays in that they've got 3 freshmen on the team. But the way they defend the Cougs, their bigs they're all like 6'8", but they've got arms that make them feel like they're like 7'4". I've been watching Stranger Things. A lot of Demogorgons out there, I think, for the Cougs. The way they smother, the way they play defense, and this team can score a little bit, unlike some of the other Coug teams. You know, with Cryer and Sharp and Uzan, those are 3 guys that shoot the 3 pretty well. So I think they're less prone to a stinker of an offensive game, which has been an issue the last few years. And last year the issue was they lost Jamal Shedd early in that Duke game, but they get a chance for a little bit of revenge. 4.5 points, man. I am taking the Cougs, and I'm taking all 4.5.
I want to give credit and acknowledge the Cougs fans who were in attendance yesterday for starting an SEC chant at the end of the game. That was much appreciated.
Good snark.
Jim Nance was in attendance as well. Said that it's harder to be a fan than an announcer. He's probably he's never quite had to experience this. He never really got to attend a lot of these games when he wasn't working.
It is kind of fun. It's got to be fun for him that when he finally decides to hang it up, the school that he went to. There were various other times you could have tried to hang it up in recent Cougs history here, pre-Kelvin Sampson, and there would have been really no reason to go to the Final Four or the Elite Eight or whatever. This is kind of fun for Jim Nance. He retires, and his team is one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country, so he can travel around and do his thing, man.
Does he still do a necktie giveaway, even though he's not announcing the game?
I don't know.
Is there any kind of maybe if it's a Cougs, he'll do that?
Maybe we'll see. Kelvin Sampson met with the media after the game, obviously press conference after the game, and it was interesting. The reporter asked Kelvin Sampson, "Did you see anything over the last 36 hours from your team that would indicate that this was the kind of performance you were going to get?"
Coach, you guys really jumped on them that first 5-10 minutes of the game. I'm wondering what, if anything, did you see in the last 36 hours that might have indicated that your team was ready to do that?
Well, it wasn't the last 36 hours. It's since June. You know, we didn't get good in the last 36 hours. You just went through the Big 12 tournament, played 3 games there. thing I like about this team, I don't think they overreact to anything, good or bad.
Yeah.
When that question was asked, I gave it a 1.3% chance of Kelvin Sampson actually giving any credence to the question itself.
Yeah.
And I expected
fun
him to show
game to play.
at least a little bit of mild irritation or somehow perceive it as an insult, which is a little bit of the edge that he manages to maintain. They go on these wins. He's the classic kind of coach that figures out ways to keep people uncomfortable all the time and keeping a chip on everybody's shoulder. Those three losses early in the season when they started off 4-3 were probably the best thing that could have happened to them because they got their scare early in the year. The little reminder that you can never relax. And a couple of them are versus very good teams, but I was joking when I called NCAA basketball professional basketball, even though it is. But I do think that this team, maybe more so than any of the recent tournament teams, they operate like veteran professional NBA players would. They don't seem to blink in high pressure moments. They don't seem to relax when things are going well. It's really cool to see.
And credit, if we'll do an acknowledge me later for the Cougs at 7:20 when we acknowledge. But if we were to acknowledge, I think one player from that game yesterday, probably in the second half, Emmanuel Sharp, hit those threes. Tennessee was kind of creeping back in. They got it down to 10 with about 7 minutes to go. Somehow they leave him wide open. He hits a three or two later. He hits a three, gets it back up to 14, and then he just hits a dagger three with about 2 or 3 minutes to go. So 3 threes down the stretch for Emmanuel Sharp. And damn, just 5 turnovers for the Cougs. So this will be, Seth, this will be the opposite of what the Indy thing was, because now the Cougs all just, there's no excuse. You just drive down to San Antonio. It's a 3-hour drive. You can be in your own bed each night if you want to. It's not because I get it. Like, it's hard. Like that, and I think football is learning this too by going to the 12-team tournament, is that it gets hard to ask anybody other than the richest and the most diehard of diehards to travel to all these games. To travel to 3 straight weeks, and if your team is doing what they're supposed to do, multiple games at each of these spots. But I think San Antonio's doable, man. I think that's you don't have to worry about flight or hotel for that one.
He's got his buddy Greg Popovich there, too. So Popovich texted Kelvin Sampson.
Oh, nice.
Said, I'm the happiest person in San Antonio today, but not as happy as you and Karen, Sampson's wife, and the family, and your whole program built with great character and love. Bravo, my good friend. From way back on our walks, enjoy the win tonight with a good red. So he's talking either about wine or a communist there. I don't know.
Kelvin Sampson spotted with 4 Russians after the game. Well, that's cool. Well, Popovich is, that's good that Popovich. I hope Popovich is doing all right. He's had a rough year. So congrats to the Cougs, man. And curious how many of the Cougs have to San Antonio next week. So we get 4 number ones. It's much to the chagrin of everybody who's been sticking up for Cinderella out there. We get 4 number 1 seeds.